The alien vampire woman suddenly grabbed me. "My teeth want you, human," she said. HFY Alex stood at the edge of the station's observation deck, gazing out into the vast emptiness of space. The quiet hum of the outpost's engines was a comforting background to the overwhelming silence of the star-streaked universe. This far from Earth, peace was a fragile thing. A human diplomat for the Galactic Federation, Alex had spent months trying to broker a truce between warring alien factions. Today, he was closer than ever to securing that peace, but not without complications. The Vorja, an ancient, mysterious race of aliens feared across the galaxy, were among the most unpredictable species in the Federation. Known for their vampiric nature, their thirst for energy rather than blood had earned them a reputation as both predators and survivors. Alex had read about them, but reading about a species and facing one up close were two very different things. His thoughts were interrupted when the door slid open, and a figure entered, tall and imposing. She was graceful, almost floating in her movements, and her presence immediately shifted the air in the room. Liara. Her name had come up often in his briefings, and even the most experienced diplomats had spoken of her with a mix of awe and caution. Liara was everything Alex had imagined, and more. Her skin was pale, almost silver in the dim light of the station, with a subtle sheen that made her seem both otherworldly and dangerous. Her eyes, bright and intense, gleamed with a color that Alex couldn't quite place. He knew the stories. Vorja eyes were said to glow when they were hungry. He had hoped he would never have to see that. "Alex," she said, her voice smooth with a slight musical quality to it. "I've heard much about you. I hope we can come to an agreement today." Alex nodded, trying to maintain his composure. "I'm here for the same reason, Liara. The peace talks have been difficult, but we're close to reaching an accord. The Federation believes we can work together for the good of all." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Instead, her gaze was calculating, as if weighing him, measuring him against something she couldn't quite explain. Her posture was almost predatory, as though she were sizing him up for some deeper, unspoken reason. "The Federation believes," she repeated, almost to herself. "Humans always believe in the best outcome, don't they?" Alex couldn't tell if it was mockery or genuine curiosity. Her tone was hard to place. Still, he didn't let it distract him from the task at hand. "Yes, and that's why we're here. We've come a long way, Liara. The others, your people, the Zinthar, are open to a compromise." Liara's expression shifted. It was subtle, but Alex noticed it. Something about the way she regarded him was unsettling. The kind of look a predator gives prey before striking. "I wonder," she mused aloud, stepping a little closer, "whether your Federation is truly ready for the kind of peace you're offering, or is this just a ploy to maintain your dominance in this sector?" Alex took a breath, trying to stay calm. "This isn't about dominance. It's about survival. The galaxy is changing. We need to adapt, work together." Her eyes narrowed, and she cut him off with a soft laugh, a sound that sent a chill down his spine. "You speak as though peace is a simple thing, Alex. It's not. Not for my people, not for yours. There's always a price to pay for peace." "I understand the cost," he said, meeting her gaze. "I'm willing to pay it. I think your people are too." For a moment, Liara didn't speak. She merely studied him, her intense gaze locking onto his. It was as if she were reading him, dissecting his very being. There was no warmth in her eyes, only cold calculation. The air between them thickened, and Alex couldn't help but feel a strange pull. It was almost magnetic, like she was drawing him in without lifting a finger. His heartbeat quickened, and for the first time in his life he understood what it meant to be prey. But then, just as quickly as it had come, the moment passed. Liara took a step back, her posture relaxed once more, though the sharp edge to her gaze remained. "I think you misunderstand, Alex," she said softly, almost to herself. "You believe this is a negotiation, but for me, it's more of a test." "A test?" he echoed, unsure of where she was going with this. Her lips curled into a slow, dangerous smile. "Yes. You see, I am not just an emissary of my people, Alex. I am a predator, and I've been watching you. I've watched the way you interact with others, how you approach situations, how you think. Humans are fascinating creatures. You are adaptable, resilient. And yet there is something in you that calls to me, something that tempts me." Alex's throat tightened. He wasn't sure if he was being flattered or threatened. "I'm not sure I understand," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I think you do," she replied, her voice dropping lower, almost a whisper. "My teeth want you, human." The words hung in the air like an electric charge. Alex stiffened, his heart racing. Was this a threat, or was she simply playing with him? He swallowed, trying to push down the wave of unease that was threatening to overwhelm him. "Your teeth?" he asked, though he already had a sinking feeling he knew what she meant. Liara didn't answer directly. Instead, she took another step closer, her eyes glowing faintly, the intensity of her stare almost burning into him. Her scent, faintly metallic, filled the space around them, and Alex's instincts screamed at him to move, to run, but he couldn't. He was frozen, caught in the web of her presence. "Yes," she said finally, her voice almost purring now. "I can feel it, Alex, the hunger, the thirst. It's an ancient craving, one that even I can't deny. But it's not just for blood, it's for something deeper, something more." Before Alex could respond, she took another step, closing the distance between them. He could feel the heat of her body, the energy she emanated, and it was as if the whole universe had narrowed down to this single, dangerous moment. "You're afraid," she observed, her lips curling again into that unsettling smile. "You feel it, don't you? The pull of something primal. My people have lived for centuries, restrained by the need to feed, but we've evolved. We have learned to control our urges. But with you, human, I'm not so sure I want to." Alex felt a shiver run through him, not just from fear, but from something else, something that felt too strange, too intense to name. He tried to back away, but his feet felt like they were glued to the floor. "I don't want to hurt you," Liara continued, her voice now almost soft, almost tender. "But there's a part of me that wonders what it would be like, to give in, to take what I need from you, to see what happens." For a moment there was only silence, thick and oppressive. Alex felt the weight of her gaze on him, and in that moment he knew, truly knew, that this encounter would not end like any other negotiation he had ever faced. This wasn't just about politics. It was about something far more dangerous, far more personal. And as he stood there, unsure whether to flee or stay, he realized something else, too. No matter how this played out, it would change everything. The tension in the room was thick, as if the very air between Alex and Liara had turned into something heavy, something that made it hard to breathe. His heart was hammering in his chest, and every instinct he had screamed at him to run, to get away from her, from the danger she represented. But his feet were frozen to the floor, and for a moment he couldn't bring himself to move. Liara took another step closer, her eyes never leaving his. Her presence seemed to fill the space, making everything else feel distant, irrelevant. Alex could feel the heat radiating from her, the way her body seemed to draw him in despite his fear. He wanted to look away to regain control of his thoughts, but there was something about her, something powerful, that made it nearly impossible. Her voice broke through the silence, low and almost hypnotic. "You're not running, Alex," she said, the words laced with a strange satisfaction. "I thought you might, but you're still here, still standing, even though you know what I am." "I don't know what you want," Alex said, his voice rough, betraying his unease. She smiled, a slow, unsettling curve of her lips. "Oh, but you do. You know exactly what I want. You just don't know how to deal with it." Alex tried to swallow the lump in his throat. "What? What do you mean?" Her gaze softened for a brief moment, but the intensity didn't lessen. If anything, it grew stronger, more focused. "You've been trained to negotiate, to understand alien cultures, but you haven't been trained to face a creature like me, have you?" Alex's throat tightened, but he refused to let fear show. He had dealt with hostile alien diplomats, warlords, and criminals before, but nothing like this. Nothing that made him feel so exposed, so vulnerable. He straightened his back, forcing himself to meet her gaze. "I can handle myself," he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Liara's eyes glimmered, and she tilted her head as though she were examining him as if she could see right through him. "I don't doubt that, Alex, but this isn't about handling yourself. This is about something deeper, something you don't fully understand, something that I've been waiting for a long time." Her voice dropped lower and the words took on an edge, a sharpness that made Alex's pulse race. "You are different. Something in you draws me. Something I can't resist." He tried to speak, but his throat felt dry as though her words had stolen his voice. His mind raced. He needed to get control of the situation. He needed to understand why Liara, of all people, was so interested in him. She was one of the most powerful members of her species. She could have any human, any being she wanted, yet here she was, fixated on him. "Liara," he started, his voice a little shaky but gaining strength. "You're a diplomat too, you know that this. This is not how negotiations work. This is about peace, about saving lives, not whatever it is you're implying." Her lips curled again, but there was no humor in the smile. It was something darker. Peace, Alex. You think peace can be brokered with words alone? Her eyes gleamed with something ancient, something untamable. No, peace must be earned, fought for sometimes, with blood. Alex stiffened. I'm not here to spill blood, he said, his voice firm despite the knot in his stomach. I'm here to stop blood from being spilled. And yet, Liara replied, her voice almost a whisper, you stand here before me unafraid as if there's nothing between us. As if there's no danger. Her eyes glowed faintly, and Alex couldn't tear his gaze away from them despite the growing fear inside him. Don't you see, Alex? You are in danger, not just because I could take you, but because you want to stay. You want to see what will happen next. The words hit him harder than he expected. His stomach twisted, and for the briefest moment he felt exposed, laid bare. Was she right? Was there something inside him, some strange part of him that was drawn to her, to the unknown? He had come here to negotiate, to stop a war, but now the mission seemed to slip further and further from his grasp. I'm not afraid of you, he said, though it was a lie. He was afraid, terrified, in fact. But it wasn't the same kind of fear he felt when dealing with armed alien warlords or hostile factions. This fear was different. This fear was more personal, more primal. It was the fear of something he didn't fully understand, and that scared him more than anything. Liara stepped closer until there was barely a foot between them. Alex could feel her breath on his skin, warm and heavy. Her presence was overwhelming, like a force of nature, something he couldn't escape. He swallowed hard, his eyes never leaving hers. Then why don't you run? She asked, her voice soft, almost teasing. If you're not afraid, why haven't you moved? I'm not running because I need to understand this, Alex said, his voice low and steady. I need to understand why you're doing this. Why you're looking at me like this. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at him, her expression shifting. The predatory glint in her eyes never faded, but there was something else there, something deeper. Something that made Alex wonder if she was struggling with her own internal battle. I told you, she said after a long pause. You don't understand. You're a human and you think you can solve everything with words, but there's a part of me. A part of my kind that doesn't want peace, doesn't want diplomacy. It wants something more. It wants to consume. Alex didn't know how to respond. He knew she wasn't just talking about her physical hunger. She was talking about something far more dangerous, far more primal. She was talking about the hunger for power, for control, the hunger that lay at the heart of every predatory species in the galaxy. I'm not a predator, he said, his voice soft but firm. Liara's lips curled again, but this time there was no humor in it. No. You're not a predator, Alex, but you're still here. You're still standing. And that, I think, is what fascinates me. You don't run, you don't hide, you stay, even when you know how dangerous I can be. For a moment they stood in silence, the weight of her words settling between them. Alex's mind was spinning. He didn't know what she was trying to do or what she wanted from him. Was she testing him, tempting him? Or was there something more, something deeper in the connection that was forming between them? I don't want this to be about danger, Liara, he said finally, his voice steady. I want it to be about something more, something real. Her gaze softened slightly, but there was still a sharpness in her eyes. And what is that, Alex? What do you think you and I could possibly have in common? I don't know, he admitted, his voice quieter now, but I'm willing to find out. For the first time since their encounter began, Liara stepped back, as though considering his words. The intensity in her eyes didn't fade, but there was a shift, a subtle change. She didn't smile, but she didn't seem as threatening either. There was a flicker of something else, something human, perhaps. We shall see, she said softly. We shall see. The silence that followed was thick with unspoken thoughts. Alex didn't know what to make of Liara's words or what would come next. But one thing was certain. This encounter, whatever it was far from over, and it was far from anything he had ever expected. As Liara turned and walked away, Alex stood there, trying to process everything that had just happened. His mind was racing, but one question lingered above all others. What was it about him that had drawn her in? What did she see in him that made her hesitate, made her change her approach? He couldn't answer that yet. But he knew that if he was going to survive this, he would have to learn quickly. The days that followed were a blur of tension and uncertainty. The talks continued, but Alex couldn't shake the image of Liara from his mind. Her gaze, her voice, and the strange, unsettling connection they had shared lingered in his thoughts. It wasn't just her beauty or her power that unsettled him. It was the way she had looked at him, the way she seemed to see straight through him, as though he were something far more important than just a human diplomat. He tried to focus on the peace talks. That was what he was here for, after all. The fate of the galaxy's peace rested on his shoulders. He needed to stay focused. But every time he met with the alien leaders, her face seemed to hover at the edges of his mind, distracting him. The Vorja, despite their fearsome reputation, were an essential part of the peace process. Their power, both diplomatic and physical, had to be factored into any agreement. Alex knew that, and he had been preparing for months to handle their unpredictability. But nothing had prepared him for Liara. It was on the fourth day after their encounter that Alex found himself once again in the same meeting room with the various factions. The atmosphere was tense, as it had been every day, but today there was something different. Something heavier in the air. It was as if the whole room was waiting for something to happen, for a change to come. Liara entered the room quietly, her presence immediately commanding attention. As usual, her appearance was striking, pale skin, eyes glowing faintly, the subtle aura of power she carried with her like a shadow. But this time there was something else in her posture. She seemed more controlled, more collected. She wasn't the same unpredictable force that had nearly overwhelmed him days before. She was more calculated now, more aware of her impact. She took her seat across from Alex, her eyes meeting his with that same unsettling intensity. But this time there was something else there, something that felt almost vulnerable. For the briefest of moments, Alex thought he saw hesitation in her gaze, but it vanished so quickly he wasn't sure if he had imagined it. He couldn't look away, though. There was something about the way she held herself that kept pulling him in. His mind screamed at him to focus, to push past the confusion, but his heart beat faster in his chest. Why couldn't he just be normal around her? Why did she affect him this way? As the meeting continued, Alex tried to pay attention to the discussions, but his mind kept drifting back to Liara. She wasn't just an alien diplomat, she was a living, breathing enigma, and he couldn't understand her. She was both a predator and something more. A creature who had lived for centuries, caught between her nature and the world she had to navigate. At the end of the meeting, the leaders dispersed, and Alex was left alone with his thoughts. He stood up slowly, gathering his things, when he felt a presence behind him. He didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Alex, Liara's voice was soft, almost gentle, a stark contrast to the fire he had heard in it before. We need to talk. He turned to face her, his pulse quickening. She looked different now, softer in a way that made her more dangerous, more unpredictable. Her gaze held his, steady and intense, as if she were trying to understand him. What about? He asked, his voice quieter than usual. The room felt smaller now, the space between them shrinking with each passing moment. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped closer, her movements fluid and graceful, like a predator closing in on its prey. But this time, there was no immediate threat in her approach. She didn't seem like she was going to hurt him, at least not physically. But the tension was still there, like an invisible string between them, pulling tighter with every step. I've been thinking about our last conversation, she said, her eyes never leaving his. About what I said. Alex swallowed hard, trying to calm his racing heart. You've been thinking about it? Liara nodded, her gaze shifting slightly as if weighing her next words carefully. Yes, you were right. I came on too strong. I didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. Alex was taken aback. He had never expected an apology from someone like her. She raised a hand to stop him. I don't apologize often, Alex, you should know that, but this situation is different. I was testing you. Testing your limits, and now I'm not sure what I'm doing anymore. Alex blinked, trying to process her words. What do you mean by that? Liara took a deep breath, her eyes searching his face for something. She seemed conflicted, torn between two worlds. I've been alive for centuries, Alex. I've seen empires rise and fall. I've seen wars that lasted for millennia, and I've watched civilizations crumble under their own weight. But I've never encountered someone like you, a human who stands in front of me without fear. Fear isn't always the right response, Alex said, though he wasn't sure if he fully believed it himself. He had been afraid, terrified even, but he wasn't going to show it to her. Not again. Liara's lips curled into a small, rueful smile. Maybe not. But it's the way most beings respond. They fear me. They fear what I am, what my kind is capable of. And I suppose in some ways I've grown used to that. But you don't fear me the way others do. And that makes it harder to figure out what to do with you. She stepped closer, so close now that Alex could feel the warmth of her body, hear the soft sound of her breath. He fought the urge to back away, but something in him refused to move. Something told him that if he ran now, he might never get another chance to understand what was happening between them. "What do you want from me, Liara?" he asked, his voice steady but his mind racing. "I don't know," she replied, her voice quieter now, almost uncertain. "I came to this station to help my people to negotiate peace. That's why I'm here, but I'm not sure anymore if that's all there is to it. There's something about you, Alex, something. Human, it calls to me." Alex's breath caught in his throat. "What do you mean?" She hesitated for a moment, as if unsure of how much to reveal. "You're not like the others. You're different. You understand things that most beings don't. You've lived a short life, but in that short time, you've seen more than many of the oldest races in the galaxy. You've survived things that would have destroyed others, and that strength, it makes me want to know you. It makes me want to understand you." "Understand me?" Alex repeated, his mind racing. "Liara, we don't even know each other. How can you?" "I know enough," she interrupted softly, stepping even closer now. Her gaze never wavered. "I know enough to feel the pull between us. It's not just attraction, Alex. It's something deeper, something ancient, something that even I can't fully control." Alex's heart raced. There was no denying the truth in her words. He felt it too, the strange connection, the magnetic pull, but he didn't understand it. He couldn't, not yet. "I don't know if I can give you what you want," Alex said, his voice a little more uncertain now, the walls he had built around himself starting to crack. "But I'll try to understand." Liara didn't speak for a moment. She just looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then she took another step back, her posture shifting slightly. "Maybe that's all we can do," she said softly. "Try." As she turned to leave, Alex felt a strange weight in his chest. He didn't know where this was going, didn't know what would happen next. But one thing was certain. His life was no longer just about diplomacy. It was about something far more complicated and far more dangerous. And as Liara disappeared through the door, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that his world had just shifted in ways he couldn't even begin to understand. The following days were marked by an uneasy silence between Alex and Liara. Despite their brief exchange, a strange understanding lingered in the air. They hadn't spoken much since that conversation in the meeting room, but Alex could sense that something had changed. He didn't know if it was the calm before a storm or a shift in the universe's course, but the tension between them was palpable. In the quiet moments between diplomatic meetings, Alex found himself reflecting on the strange pull he felt toward her. It was a mix of fascination, fear, and curiosity, a combination that made it nearly impossible to think straight. He had spent years dealing with hostile alien factions, but none had affected him like Liara. She was a puzzle, dangerous, enigmatic, and yet somehow different from all the others. It was on the 7th day after their encounter that Alex received an unexpected message. The transmission was brief and cryptic. "Meet me in the old hangar." Midnight, it was signed only with Liara's name. He stared at the message for a long time, unsure of what to make of it. The old hangar was an abandoned part of the station, a place few people dared to go. It was filled with old machinery and storage, the kind of place where secrets were hidden. Why would she want to meet there? And why at midnight? Despite the uncertainty, Alex knew he had no choice but to go. It was clear that Liara was not someone he could ignore. Whatever game she was playing, he was already caught up in it. He couldn't just walk away now. As midnight approached, Alex left his quarters, his mind racing with possibilities. The station was eerily quiet at this hour, the usual hum of activity replaced by an unsettling stillness. He made his way through the dimly lit hallways, his footsteps echoing off the metal walls. Every corner he turned felt more like a trap closing in on him. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen, something that would change everything. When he reached the old hangar, he paused at the entrance. The door was slightly ajar, and there was a faint light coming from within. He hesitated, taking a deep breath to steady himself. Whatever this was, he was in too deep to turn back now. He stepped inside, the cool air inside the hangar sending a shiver down his spine. The place was as desolate as he remembered. Old crates, scattered tools, and rusted machinery lined the walls. But in the center of the room, there was a single figure standing in the dim light. Liara. Her silhouette was striking against the shadows, her pale skin almost glowing in the low light. She was wearing something different this time, no formal attire, no regal robes. She wore something simpler, more practical. A fitted black suit that showed off her athletic build, a contrast to the elegance she usually exuded. There was no hint of the usual formality in her stance. She looked vulnerable, like she had let down her guard for the first time. "You came," she said, her voice low, almost hesitant. Alex stepped closer, his gaze fixed on her. "What is this about, Liara?" he asked, his voice tense. "Why meet here? Why now?" Liara turned slightly, as if considering how to respond. Her eyes met his, but there was no trace of the cold, calculating woman he had seen before. Instead, there was something softer there, something uncertain. "I needed to talk to you, Alex, away from the politics, away from the others, just you and me." Alex frowned. "I don't understand. Why now? What do you want?" Liara took a step closer to him, her eyes scanning his face as though searching for something. "I told you before I don't know what I want, but something has changed. I can feel it, and I think you can, too." Her words were like a riddle, and Alex struggled to make sense of them. He had known Liara was dangerous, but there was more to her than just power. There was a depth to her that he couldn't ignore. She wasn't just an alien diplomat or a vampire, she was something far more complicated. "What has changed?" he asked, his voice quieter now, more careful. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached out, her hand brushing against his arm in a gesture that was surprisingly gentle. "You've made me question things, Alex. You've made me question what I've always known." He stared at her hand, feeling the warmth of her touch through the fabric of his jacket. His heart pounded in his chest, but he didn't pull away. There was a part of him that wanted to understand her, wanted to figure out why she had this hold over him. But there was also a part of him that was afraid, afraid of what she might do, afraid of what this could mean. "Question what?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Everything," Liara replied softly. "My purpose, my people's purpose, the way I've lived for centuries. It's all been for one thing, survival. But now I'm beginning to wonder if there's something more. Something beyond the endless cycle of power, control, and hunger." Alex's breath caught in his throat. For the first time, he saw vulnerability in her eyes. For the first time, she wasn't the predator. She was a creature caught in a struggle, just like him. She was just as lost, just as confused. "I've been alive for so long, Alex," she continued, her voice heavy with emotion. "Longer than you can imagine. I've seen everything, loved, lost, fought. But nothing has ever felt as real as this moment." Alex took a step closer, his mind racing. He didn't know what she was asking, but he knew that something was shifting, something deep and undeniable. "What do you want from me?" he asked again, his voice softer this time. Liara's gaze never wavered. "I want to know if there's something between us. If we can find a way to live without this constant need for power, without the hunger that drives my people. Can we be something more than just two different species on opposite sides of a war? Can we be something more than this?" Tension. Alex stood there, frozen. He had never expected her to say this, never imagined she would admit to such a thing. The thought of a future with her, of a future where peace wasn't just about politics, but about something deeper, terrified him. But it also filled him with a strange sense of hope. He had never been one to shy away from the impossible, but this was something else entirely. "I don't know," he said finally, his voice rough. "I don't know if we can be something more, but I'm willing to try." Liara stepped closer, her face inches from his. The air between them was thick with tension, and Alex could feel his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel her power, her hunger radiating off her, but this time, it wasn't the kind of hunger that terrified him. This time it was something different, something softer. "I've never known a human like you," Liara whispered, her breath warm against his skin. "And I don't think I ever will again." Alex didn't respond, he didn't know what to say. Instead, he simply reached out, his hand brushing against hers. For a moment they stood there, silent, their hands touching, their bodies inches apart. There was no need for words now. They both understood. In that moment, Alex realized that this was no longer just about the peace talks, or the galaxy, or the mission. This was about them, and no matter how dangerous or uncertain the future might be, he knew that he couldn't walk away from this, from her. "I don't know where this will go," Alex said, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside him. "But I'll go with you wherever this takes us." Liara's eyes softened, and for the first time she smiled, genuinely, without any trace of the predator she had been before. "We'll find out together," she said. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Alex believed that there might actually be hope. The days after their meeting in the hangar passed in a blur of uncertainty and change. Alex found himself torn between the human part of him, the diplomat who had spent his life working toward peace, and the part of him that was being pulled into something much more complicated. Liara had opened a door in his mind, one that he wasn't sure he could close again. There was no denying that there was something between them, something deep and powerful that neither of them could ignore. The peace talks were still ongoing, but now there was a tension that Alex couldn't shake. Every word he spoke, every move he made seemed to carry weight that it hadn't before. The galaxy was on the brink of something important, but Alex couldn't stop thinking about Liara. She was always there, lingering at the edges of his thoughts, her presence like a shadow he couldn't escape. Liara, too, seemed different. She was still the same strong, capable leader that Alex had first encountered, but now there was something more to her. A vulnerability that she had never shown before. She had stopped hiding behind the walls of her race's predatory nature and was showing him a side of herself that no one else had ever seen. She was still a Vorja, still powerful and dangerous, but she was also someone who was searching for something more. And Alex couldn't help but feel that he was the one she was searching for. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Alex found himself in his quarters, staring out of the window at the stars. The silence in his room was deafening. He had been running on adrenaline for so long that now, in the stillness, everything seemed overwhelming. The weight of the galaxy's problems felt crushing. He wasn't just dealing with the delicate balance of peace between alien species anymore. He was dealing with his own feelings, his own confusion, and that made everything so much more complicated. There was a knock at the door, and Alex's heart skipped a beat. He knew who it was before he even opened it. Liara stood there, looking as composed and powerful as ever, but there was something in her eyes that told Alex this wasn't just a routine visit. This was something more. "You're late," she said with a soft smile, though her eyes were serious. "I've been waiting for you." Alex stepped aside to let her in, his mind racing. He had no idea what she wanted to say, but he could feel that it was important. Everything between them had been building to this moment, and now it felt like the tipping point. Whatever happened next would change everything. "I wasn't sure if I was ready to talk," Alex admitted, closing the door behind her. "There's a lot going on, Liara, too much." "I know," she replied softly, her voice almost a whisper. "But this is different. We can't keep pretending like it's just about the talks or the mission or the galaxy's future. Not anymore." Her words hit Alex like a physical blow. It was true, everything between them had shifted, and no matter how hard he tried to focus on the bigger picture, it was impossible to ignore the connection he felt with her. She had become more than just an ally. She had become a part of his thoughts, a part of his life. "I don't know what to say," he confessed, his voice strained. "I've never been in this situation before. You're not just another diplomat, Liara. You're something else, something I don't fully understand." Liara stepped closer to him, her presence overwhelming yet strangely comforting. "I don't want you to understand me, Alex," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I don't need you to figure me out. I just need you to be here, to be with me." Her words made his heart beat faster. He had been afraid of this, afraid of how deep this connection went. But now, standing in front of her, he realized that he didn't want to fight it anymore. He didn't want to deny what was happening between them. "I don't know if I can," Alex said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I'm strong enough to handle this." Liara reached out, placing her hand on his chest, just over his heart. "You're stronger than you think," she said quietly. "And I'm not asking you to handle this alone. I'm asking you to take this step with me, together." Alex looked into her eyes, and for the first time he saw something in her that wasn't just power or strength. He saw fear, fear of the unknown, of what this could mean for them. He saw the same uncertainty that he felt, and that realization made him reach out and pull her closer. He didn't know where this path would lead, but he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't do it without her. "You don't have to face this alone either," Alex said, his voice steady now. "I'm here, I'll be with you no matter what." For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just stood there, connected in a way that neither of them could fully explain. The future was uncertain, and the weight of the galaxy still loomed over them. But in that moment, it didn't matter. They were here together, and that was all that mattered. The next few days were a blur of decisions and consequences. The peace talks reached a critical point, with factions threatening to pull away from the negotiations. Tensions between the different species were at an all-time high, and it seemed like a full-scale war was inevitable. But Alex and Liara were determined to stop it, no matter the cost. Alex had never been more uncertain in his life, but there was a quiet strength in him now. The conversations with Liara had changed something deep inside him. He wasn't just fighting for peace anymore. He was fighting for something bigger, something personal, something that would shape the future of not just the galaxy, but their lives as well. On the day of the final meeting, as the various alien leaders gathered in the Grand Hall, Alex stood next to Liara, his heart racing. The room was filled with representatives from all over the galaxy, each of them watching him, waiting for him to deliver the solution. The weight of the moment was suffocating, but Liara's presence beside him gave him strength. She looked at him, her eyes steady, and nodded slightly. She was ready. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Alex took a deep breath and stepped forward, his voice calm but firm as he addressed the assembly. "We stand at a crossroads," he began, his gaze sweeping over the room. "We can continue down this path of destruction, tearing apart everything we've worked for, or we can choose a different way, a way of peace, a way of understanding." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We are not so different, all of us. We all want the same thing, to survive, to thrive, to protect our people. But that can only happen if we stand together, if we stop the cycles of violence and mistrust, if we learn to work as one." For a long moment, the room was silent. The leaders exchanged glances, unsure of what to say. It seemed like the galaxy itself was holding its breath, waiting for a decision to be made. And then, from the back of the room, a voice spoke up. "We agree," the leader of the Zinthar faction said, his voice heavy but resolute. "It is time for peace." A ripple of murmurs spread throughout the room, but it was clear that something had shifted. The tide had turned. The negotiations were not just about the future of the galaxy. They were about something much deeper. And in that moment, Alex realized that peace was never just about politics. It was about understanding, trust, and the willingness to put everything on the line for something greater. The room erupted in applause, but Alex barely heard it. His mind was focused on Liara, standing beside him, her gaze soft but filled with determination. Together, they had done it. They had saved the galaxy. Later that night, as the stars stretched out before them, Alex and Liara stood together, side by side. The galaxy had changed, and so had they. There was no going back to the way things were before. Their bond had deepened in ways neither of them had expected, and as they looked toward the future, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. "We did it," Alex said, his voice filled with awe. Liara looked at him, a small, knowing smile on her lips. "We did, but this is just the beginning." Alex nodded, his heart full of hope for the future. No matter what came next, he knew one thing: they were stronger together, and together they could face anything.